The year was 2147, and Earth had reached a point where technology ruled almost every aspect of life. People lived in towering cities that floated above oceans, while machines handled everything from cooking meals to governing nations. Space travel was as common as taking a bus, and humanity believed it had conquered all the challenges nature could throw at them. But on one quiet autumn morning, something strange happened. A swirling black void appeared in the sky. It started small, barely noticeable, like a dark smudge against the blue heavens. At first, people thought it was some kind of weather anomaly or perhaps an experiment gone wrong. But within hours, the void began to grow. It wasn't just spreading. It seemed to be consuming light itself. The edges shimmered with an eerie glow, and anything that came too close disappeared without a trace. Scientists named it the Umbra, but no one knew what it truly was or why it was there. In Seoul, South Korea, two individuals found themselves drawn into this unfolding mystery. One was Hyun-soo, a brilliant astrophysicist known for his unconventional ideas. He often clashed with colleagues because he preferred thinking outside the box rather than following traditional methods. Despite his reputation for being difficult, everyone agreed that when it came to understanding space, few were better than him. The other was Yoon-ji, an engineer who specialized in quantum mechanics. She had developed groundbreaking technologies that helped power entire cities, yet she carried a heavy burden of guilt. Her inventions had made life easier, but they also contributed to environmental destruction and social inequality. Deep down, she wondered if humanity deserved the tools she created. When news of the Umbra broke out, both Hyun-soo and Yoon-ji were summoned to join a special task force tasked with figuring out what it was and how to stop it. They arrived at the research facilities separately, neither expecting to work together. From the moment they met, sparks flew, not romantic ones, but argument over theories and approaches. Hyun-soo believed the Umbra might be a natural phenomenon, albeit one never seen before. Yoon-ji disagreed, suggested it could be linked to human activity, possibly even a manifestation of humanity's collective guilt. Despite their differences, they quickly realized they needed each other. Hyun-soo's knowledge of outer space complemented Yoon-ji's expertise in advanced technology. Together, they led teams conducting experiments around the clock. Satellites were launched to gather data. Drones flew dangerously close to the Umbra's edge, and supercomputers processed endless streams of information. Yet despite all their efforts, nothing seemed to explain its origin or purpose. As days turned into weeks, the Umbra continued growing. It consumed satellites, aircraft, and eventually entire cities near its borders. Panic spread worldwide as governments struggled to respond. Military forces attempted to attack it with missiles and lasers, but none of their weapons made any difference. Religious leaders declared it a sign of divine punishment, while conspiracy theorists claimed it was evidence of alien invasion. Ordinary citizens either fled in terror or gave into despair, indulging in reckless behavior as though preparing for the end of the world. What frightened people most, however, was not just the physical destruction caused by the Umbra. It was the way it affected those who came near it. Reports poured in of individuals acting strangely after exposure. Some became violent, lashing out at friends and family. Others withdrew completely, refusing to speak or interact with anyone. A few claimed to hear voices whispering in their minds, urging them to do unspeakable things. No one understood why this was happening, but it became clear that the Umbra wasn't just a threat to buildings and landscapes. It was attacking the very fabric of human society. Hyun-soo spent countless nights staring at maps of the Umbra's expansion, searching for patterns or clues. He couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't random, that there was intelligence behind it. One evening, while reviewing data collected by probes sent into its vicinity, he noticed something peculiar. Embedded within the electromagnetic signals emitted by the Umbra were faint patterns resembling ancient languages. Excited, he rushed to share his discovery with Yoon-ji. Yoon-ji listened skeptically as Hyun-soo explained his findings. While intrigued, she remained cautious. "Even if you're right," she said, "what does it mean? Are we dealing with some kind of alien communication? Or is this just another trick to distract us?" "I don't know," Hyun-soo admitted, "but I think we should try decoding it. If the Umbra really is intelligent, maybe it's trying to tell us something." Working side by side, they managed to decipher fragments of the mysterious language. What they uncovered sent chills down their spines. To survive, you must adapt. The message was cryptic, leaving more questions than answers. Adapt how? To what? Neither Hyun-Soo nor Yoon-ji could say for sure, but one thing was certain. Humanity didn't have much time left to figure it out. News of their discovery leaked to the public, sparking widespread panic. Governments convened emergency meetings to discuss drastic measures. Some proposed evacuating Earth entirely, though no planet within reach offered suitable conditions for human survival. Others suggested using nuclear weapons to obliterate the Umbra, despite knowing such attempts would likely fail. In desperation, a group of scientists unveiled a radical plan called Project Eclipse. Project Eclipse aimed to merge human consciousness with machines, creating hybrid beings capable of resisting the Umbra's influence. It sounded like science fiction, but the technology already existed thanks to advancements pioneered by researchers like Yoon-ji. Still, the ethical implications were staggering. Critics argued that transforming humans into cyborgs would strip away what made them human in the first place. Supporters countered that survival required sacrifice, and if embracing darkness was the price of living, then so be it. Hyun-Soo wrestled with his conscience as he considered joining the project. On one hand, he saw it as humanity's last hope. On the other, he feared becoming complicit in something morally reprehensible. Yoon-ji, meanwhile, refused outright, unable to reconcile her principles with the idea of playing God. Their disagreement strained their partnership, threatening to derail their progress altogether. Amidst the chaos, ordinary people tried to carry on with their lives. Families huddled together in makeshift shelters, praying for salvation. Artists painted murals depicting scenes of hope and resilience. Children played games inspired by stories of heroes battling monsters. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity clung to its spirit, refusing to give up entirely. Yet shadows loomed larger with each passing day. The Umbra showed no signs of stopping, and tensions between nations escalated as resources dwindled. Riots broke out in major cities, fueled by anger and fear. Criminal gangs seized control of abandoned districts, exploiting the vulnerable for profit. Amidst all this turmoil, whispers of rebellion grew louder. Some groups advocated peaceful resistance, urging unity and cooperation. Others embraced violence, believing only through force could humanity reclaim its future. Through it all, Hyun-Soo and Yoon-ji pressed on, driven by a shared determination to uncover the truth about the Umbra. Though divided by different philosophies, they remained united in their mission. Each night, as they pored over data and debated strategies, they couldn't help but wonder whether humanity's fate rested in their hands, or if they were simply delaying the inevitable. And so, as the darkness continued to rise, humanity faced a choice: to fight back with everything it had, or succumb to despair and let the void consume them whole. Months turned into years, but the Umbra showed no signs of slowing down. Its relentless expansion swallowed entire continents, leaving behind a barren wasteland where once vibrant cities thrived. Humanity was on the brink of collapse, and desperation had taken root in every corner of the world. Governments scrambled to respond, yet their efforts were futile against an enemy they couldn't understand. Fear spread faster than the Umbra itself, infecting minds and hearts. Hyun-Soo and Yoon-ji continued working tirelessly, though their partnership grew strained under the weight of constant failure. Hyun-Soo clung to his belief that the Umbra was intelligent, convinced it held answers if only they could decode its language further. He spent sleepless nights analyzing data, searching for patterns or hidden messages. Yoon-ji, however, grew increasingly skeptical. She argued that humanity's actions, centuries of greed, war, and environmental destruction, had somehow birthed this catastrophe. To her, the Umbra wasn't just an external threat. It was a mirror reflecting humanity's darkest flaws. Their debates became heated, often spilling into arguments. "We're wasting time chasing ghosts," Yoon-ji snapped one evening as they reviewed new findings. "This isn't about aliens or ancient languages. It's about us. We did this. And what would you have us do?" Hyun-Soo shot back, frustration etched across his face. "Sit here and wait for the end? Or maybe we should just give up and let the Umbra win. Yoon-ji didn't answer. Instead, she turned away, her shoulders slumped with exhaustion. They both knew the stakes were too high for either of them to walk away, but their different perspectives made collaboration difficult. Still, they pressed on, bound by necessity and shared determination. As the Umbra consumed more territory, society fractured. Some people retreated underground, building fortified bunkers designed to withstand whatever horrors awaited above. Others embraced nihilism, indulging in reckless behavior as though preparing for the inevitable apocalypse. Religious cults sprang up everywhere, worshipping the Umbra as divine punishment or salvation. In the streets, chaos reigned. Riots erupted daily, fueled by anger and despair. Criminal gangs seized control of abandoned districts, exploiting the weak and vulnerable for profit. Amidst this turmoil, a radical idea gained traction: Project Eclipse. Proposed by a secretive coalition of scientists and military leaders, the project aimed to merge human consciousness with machines, creating hybrid beings capable of resisting the Umbra's influence. The concept sounded like science fiction, yet the technology already existed thanks to advancements pioneered by researchers like Yoon-ji. Neural implants, artificial organs, and cybernetic enhancements have been used for decades, but never on such a massive scale. When news of Project Eclipse leaked to the public, outrage followed. Critics called it monstrous, arguing that transforming humans into cyborgs would strip away what little remained of humanity's essence. Proponents countered that survival required sacrifice, and if embracing darkness was the price of living, then so be it. Governments around the world debated the ethics of the plan, but ultimately, fear won out. With no other options left, Project Eclipse moved forward. Volunteers were recruited from all walks of life. Most were criminals sentenced to death, terminally ill patients seeking a second chance, or desperate citizens willing to risk everything for survival. Among them was Jae-min, a former soldier haunted by the atrocities he committed during the global resource wars. Once celebrated as a hero, Jae-min now lived in shame, unable to escape memories of the lives he'd destroyed. When he heard about Project Eclipse, he saw it as redemption, an opportunity to make amends for his past sins. The procedure was grueling. Volunteers underwent extensive surgeries to implant neural interfaces, synthetic limbs, and enhanced sensory systems. Their bodies were rebuilt piece by piece, turning flesh into metal and bone into circuits. Many didn't survive the process, succumbing to complications or rejecting the foreign materials. Those who did emerge as something entirely new, hybrid being stronger, faster, and smarter than ordinary humans. But there was a cost. These hybrids lacked empathy, viewing regular humans as weak and expendable. Jae-min struggled with his transformation. Physically, he felt invincible, capable of feats far beyond human limits. Mentally, however, he wrestled with conflicting identities. Memories of his old life clashed with his newfound abilities. At times, he questioned whether he was still human at all, or if he'd become something else entirely. Despite these doubts, he threw himself into training, determined to prove his worth. Meanwhile, Hyun-soo and Yoon-ji faced ethical dilemmas of their own. Both were invited to oversee Project Eclipse, knowing full well it might destroy what little remained of humanity's soul. Yoon-ji refused outright, unable to reconcile her conscience with the idea of playing God. Hyun-soo, driven by desperation, reluctantly agreed, hoping to steer the project towards something less monstrous. Yet even as he worked alongside the scientists, guilt gnawed at him. Was he helping save humanity or condemning it? Tensions between humans and hybrids escalated quickly. Initially, hybrids were hailed as saviors, deployed to defend key locations from the Umbra's encroachment. Their enhanced abilities proved invaluable, allowing them to withstand conditions that would kill ordinary humans. However, as their numbers grew, so did their arrogance. Hybrids began asserting dominance, seizing control of facilities and resources. They viewed themselves as Earth's rightful protectors, dismissing protests from those who opposed them. Conflict erupted when a group of hybrids attacked a refugee camp, claiming it was necessary to preserve supplies for worthy survivors. News of the massacre sparked outrage worldwide. Protesters took to the streets, demanding justice and calling for an end to Project Eclipse. Governments hesitated, torn between maintaining order and addressing public concerns. Meanwhile, underground resistance movements formed, vowing to fight back against the hybrids. Jae-min found himself caught in the middle of this growing divide. On one hand, he understood the hybrid perspective. They were stronger, smarter, and better equipped to handle the challenges posed by the Umbra. On the other hand, he couldn't ignore the suffering caused by their actions. Late at night, he often wandered through empty streets, haunted by memories of the people he'd killed during the wars. He wondered if humanity truly deserved salvation, or if embracing darkness was the only way forward. One evening, Jae-min encountered Yoon-ji while patrolling a crumbling neighborhood. She stood alone amidst the ruins, staring up at the Umbra's ever-expanding shadow. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Yoon-ji broke the silence. "Do you think we can fix this?" she asked softly, her voice trembling with uncertainty. Jae-min hesitated before answering. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I think we have to try." Yoon-ji nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "I've been thinking, maybe the Umbra isn't just consuming us. Maybe it's feeding off us. Our fear, our hatred, everything bad inside us. Every act of violence makes it stronger." Her words struck a chord deep within Jae-min. He thought about the riots, the massacres, the endless cycle of anger and revenge. Could it be true? Was humanity's darkest impulses fueling the Umbra's growth? Determined to find answers, Yoon-ji returned to the lab, poring over data with renewed urgency. She reached out to Hyun-soo, urging him to reconsider his involvement in Project Eclipse. Together, they uncovered disturbing evidence suggesting Yoon-ji's theory might be correct. The Umbra wasn't just expanding, it was evolving, adapting to humanity's emotions like a predator stalking its prey. Armed with this knowledge, they devised a risky plan to reverse the Umbra's effects. Using advanced technology, they hoped to amplify positive emotions such as hope, love, and unity, countering the negativity that fed the Umbra. But implementing the plan would require accessing the anomaly's core, a suicide mission with no guarantee of success. When Jae-min learned of their intentions, he confronted them. "You're asking people to risk their lives based on a theory?" he demanded, his voice laced with skepticism. "What if you're wrong?" "We don't have a choice," Yoon-ji replied firmly. "If we don't try, we'll lose everything." Jae-min stared at her, conflicted. Part of him wanted to dismiss the idea as foolish, but another part, the part that still remembered what it meant to be human, felt compelled to believe. After a long pause, he nodded. "All right," he said finally, "I'll help." With Jae-min's support, the trio prepared for their perilous journey. Supplies were gathered, equipment tested, and contingency plans drawn up. As they worked, whispers of rebellion spread among the remaining human population. Ordinary people banded together, inspired by the possibility of fighting back against the Umbra. Though few believed victory was possible, they clung to the hope that even in the darkest times, light could prevail. And so, as the world teetered on the edge of oblivion, three unlikely allies set out to confront the heart of darkness. Each carried their own burdens, guilt, doubt, and regret. But united by a shared purpose, they dared to imagine a future free from fear. Whether their plan would succeed remained uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity's fate rested not in the hands of gods or monsters, but in the fragile, stubborn resilience of those who refused to give up. The conflict between humans and hybrids reached a boiling point. Cities that once stood tall now lay in ruins, battleground for the war over Earth's future. Ordinary people struggled to survive amidst the chaos, caught between the merciless efficiency of the hybrids and the dwindling resistance led by those who refused to surrender their humanity. The air was thick with smoke and despair, but also with determination. For every life lost, another seemed to rise up, unwilling to let darkness claim the world without a fight. Hyun-soo had grown quieter in recent weeks. His decision to oversee Project Eclipse weighed heavily on him, gnawing at his conscience like an unrelenting storm. He tried to justify his actions by telling himself it was all for survival, that sacrifices were necessary when faced with extinction. But deep down, he knew better. Every time he looked into the cold, calculating eyes of a hybrid soldier, he couldn't help but wonder if they'd crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Was this really what humanity was meant to become? Yoon-ji, on the other hand, remained steadfast in her opposition to the project. She spent most of her days locked away in makeshift labs, analyzing data and running simulations. Her guilt over creating technologies that contributed to the planet's downfall drove her to seek redemption. If there was any chance of reversing the Umbra's effects, she believed it lay not in augmenting humanity with machines, but in understanding its true nature. When she wasn't working, she wandered to the remnants of Sol, watching as ordinary people banded together to protect one another. It reminded her of something important. No matter how dire things became, humanity's greatest strength was its capacity for connection. Jamin found himself torn between these two worlds. As a hybrid, he possessed abilities far beyond those of regular humans. Superhuman strength, heightened senses, and near-indestructible resilience. Yet, despite these advantages, he felt more vulnerable than ever. Memories of his past life haunted him, especially during quiet moments when the noise of battle faded into silence. He remembered the faces of those he'd killed during the wars, the innocent lives destroyed by his own hands. Becoming part machine hadn't erased his guilt. It only amplified it. One night, while patrolling the outskirts of a crumbling city, Jamin encountered a group of survivors hiding in an abandoned subway station. They eyed him warily, clutching makeshift weapons as though ready to defend themselves at a moment's notice. Jamin raised his hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. "I'm here to help," he said, his voice calm but firm. For a long moment, no one moved. Then a young woman stepped forward, her face streaked with dirt and tears. "Help?" she spat bitterly. "You're one of them, one of the monsters who took everything from us." Jamin flinched at her words, feeling their weight like a physical blow. He wanted to argue, to explain that he wasn't like the others. But how could he? To these people, he was a monster, a symbol of everything wrong with the world. Instead, he simply nodded. "I can't change what I am," he admitted, "but I can still choose what I do." The woman hesitated, then lowered her weapon slightly. Behind her, the rest of the group exchanged uncertain glances before finally stepping aside to let him pass. Inside the station, Jamin saw children huddled together, shivering despite the oppressive heat. Elderly men and women sat quietly, their eyes hollow with exhaustion. These were forgotten ones, left behind by both humans and hybrids alike. Jamin felt a pang of shame as he realized how little he'd thought about them until now. Over the next few days, Jamin returned to the station multiple times, bringing food, water, and medical supplies scavenged from nearby ruins. At first, the survivors treated him with suspicion, whispering harsh words whenever his back was turned. But as time passed, their attitudes softened. They began to see him not as a threat, but as someone willing to risk everything for their sake. For Jamin, it was a revelation. In helping these strangers, he found a sense of purpose he hadn't felt since before the wars. Maybe redemption wasn't about erasing the past. It was about making amends in the present. Meanwhile, Hyun-soo and Yoon-ji continued their work, driven by a shared urgency to uncover the truth about the Umbra. Their earlier discovery, that the anomaly fed on negative emotions, had opened new avenues of research. Using advanced algorithms, they analyzed patterns of human behavior across affected regions, searching for correlations between emotional states and the Umbra's growth. What they found was chilling. Fear, anger, and hatred acted like fuel, accelerating its expansion. Conversely, acts of kindness, compassion, and unity seemed to slow it down, albeit temporarily. "This changes everything," Yoon-ji said one evening as they reviewed the findings. Her voice trembled with excitement and dread. "If we can amplify positive emotions on a global scale, maybe we can weaken the Umbra enough to stop it." "But how?" HY-Soo asked, rubbing his temples. "We don't have the resources or technology to influence billions of people at once. We'll have to start small," Yoon-ji replied. "Focus on key locations where the Umbra is weakest. If we can create pockets of hope and resilience, it might spread organically." It was a risky plan, fraught with uncertainty. Amplify emotions required delicate precision. Even the slightest miscalculation could backfire, triggering more violence and despair. Still, they agreed it was worth trying. With Jamin's assistance, they began assembling a team of volunteers, ordinary citizens willing to risk their lives for the sake of humanity. Their journey to the heart of the Umbra would be perilous. The path ahead was littered with obstacles, unstable terrain warped by the anomaly's presence, hostile hybrid patrols determined to eliminate any threats to their dominance, and the ever-present danger succumbing to the Umbra's corruptive influence. Each step forward brought them closer to the unknown, testing their resolve and forcing them to confront their deepest fears. As they prepared for the mission, Jamin reflected on the choices that had brought him here. Becoming a hybrid had stripped him of much of his humanity, yet it had also given him a second chance, a chance to make things right. He thought about the survivors in the subway station, their faces etched with pain, but also with hope. If they could find strength in the darkest of times, then so could he. On the eve of their departure, the trio gathered in a dimly lit room, surrounded by maps, equipment, and hastily scribbled notes. The air was heavy with anticipation, each of them aware that failure meant the end of everything. Hyun-Soo broke the silence first. Tomorrow, we go where no one has gone before. We'll face dangers none of us can predict. But if we succeed, we might save not just ourselves, but everyone. Yoon-ji nodded, her expression resolute. Whatever happens, we stick together. That's our only advantage. Jamin clenched his fists, feeling a surge of determination. Then let's finish this, he said firmly, for everyone who's counting on us. With those words, they set their plans in motion, knowing full well the odds were stacked against them. Yet in that moment, none of them felt afraid. They had chosen to walk into the darkness, armed with nothing but hope and the belief that even in the bleakest of times, humanity's light could shine through. And perhaps, just perhaps, that would be enough to turn the tide. The journey to Heart of the Umbra was unlike anything Hyun-Soo, Yoon-ji, and Jamin had ever experienced. The landscape around them twisted and warped as though reality itself were unraveling. Trees bent at impossible angles, their branches clawed at the sky like skeletal fingers. Rivers flowed backward, their waters shimmering with an unnatural glow. Even the air felt heavy, pressing down on them with a suffocating weight that made every breath a struggle. As they ventured deeper, the trio encountered pockets of resistance, small groups of ordinary people clinging to life amidst the chaos. These survivors had banded together, building makeshift shelters from scraps of metal and wood. Despite their dire circumstances, they radiated a quiet strength, sharing what little food and water they had while tending to the sick and injured. Watching them, Yoon-ji felt a flicker of hope. If humanity could endure such hardships without losing its compassion, then perhaps there was still a chance to turn things around. Jamin, too, found inspiration in these encounters. Though he remained an outsider, a hybrid among humans, he sensed a shift in how people treated him. At first, they regarded him with suspicion, wary of his mechanical enhancements and superior abilities. But as he helped repair broken equipment, carried supplies, and defended their camps from roaming hybrid patrols, their attitudes softened. They began to see him not as a monster, but as someone willing to fight for their survival. For Jamin, this acceptance meant more than words could express. It reminded him that redemption wasn't about proving himself to others. It was about earning their trust through actions. Hyun-Soo, however, grew increasingly uneasy. The closer they got to the Umbra's core, the stronger its pull became. He could feel it tugging at his mind, whispering dark thoughts that threatened to overwhelm him. Doubts crept into his thoughts. Doubts about their mission, about humanity's ability to survive, about whether they were truly making a difference. One night, as they rested in the ruins of an old factory, he confided in Yoon-ji. "What if we're wrong?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "What if all this effort is pointless? Maybe humanity doesn't deserve to be saved." Yoon-ji placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "It's not our job to decide who deserves salvation," she said gently. "All we can do is try. And even if we fail, at least we'll know we gave everything we had." Her words steadied him, but only for a moment. The whispers returned soon after, louder and more insistent. Hyun-Soo clenched his fists, fighting to keep his focus. He knew the stakes. If he succumbed to the Umbra's influence, it would mean disaster for everyone. Despite these challenges, the trio pressed on, driven by a shared determination to reach their goal. Along the way, they relied on Jamin's enhanced abilities to navigate treacherous terrain and evade hostile hybrid forces. His strength allowed them to clear debris blocking their path, while his heightened senses warned them of danger long before it arrived. Yet, even with his advantages, Jamin couldn't shake the feeling that something or someone was watching them. Shadows seemed to move just beyond the edge of his vision, disappearing whenever he turned to look. It unnerved him, but he kept his fears to himself, unwilling to burden the others. Finally, after days of relentless travel, they reached the heart of the Umbra. It loomed before them, a swirling vortex of darkness, so vast it seemed to stretch endlessly into the heavens. Lightning crackled within its depths, casting eerie shadows across the ground. A deafening hum filled the air, vibrating through their bones and making it hard to think clearly. This was it, the source of all their suffering, the entity that had consumed entire cities and driven humanity to the brink of extinction. Yoon-ji activated the device she'd spent weeks designing. It resembled a large metallic sphere covered in glowing circuits and wires. According to her calculations, it would amplify positive emotions like hope, love, and unity, countering the negativity that fueled the Umbra's growth. But using it required getting dangerously close to the anomaly, a task fraught with risk. "We need to synchronize our efforts," Yoon-ji explained as she adjusted controls. "Hyun-soo, you'll monitor the readings and guide us. Jamin, you'll protect us from any threats. I'll handle the device itself." Both men nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. There was no room for error. One misstep could doom them all. As Yoon-ji approached the Umbra, she felt a wave of fear wash over her. Its presence was overwhelming, a living void that seemed to devour light and sound alike. She forced herself to take slow, steady steps, focusing on the rhythm of her breathing. Behind her, Hyun-soo relayed updates in a tense voice, warning her of fluctuations in the electromagnetic field. Jamin stood guard, his sharp eyes scanning the horizon for signs of trouble. When Yoon-ji was within range, she activated the device. A soft hum emanated from it, growing louder as energy surged through its circuits. Beams of light shot out in all directions, creating a barrier between them and the Umbra. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the anomaly began to shrink. Its edges receded, revealing glimpses of stars obscured for years. The trio watched in awe as the darkness faded, replaced by a faint glimmer of hope. But their victory was short-lived. As the Umbra contracted, the surrounding area destabilized. Cracks appeared in the ground, spreading rapidly toward them. Rocks tumbled from above, forcing them to dodge falling debris. The hum of the device grew erratic, its circuits straining under the strain. "We have to shut it down," Hyun-soo shouted, panic edging his voice. "No," Yoon-ji countered. "If we stop now, the Umbra will recover. We have to hold it until it collapses completely." Jamin stepped forward, his expression grim. "I'll stay behind and keep it running," he said firmly. "You two need to get out of here." "Are you insane?" Hyun-soo exclaimed. "You'll die." "I'm already dead," Jamin replied with a sad smile. "This is my chance to make things right for everyone." Before either of them could argue further, Jamin grabbed the device and moved closer to the Umbra. His body absorbed the brunt of the instability, shielding Yoon-ji and Hyun-soo from harm. They hesitated, torn between gratitude and grief, but ultimately realized they had no choice. Reluctantly, they turned and ran. As they escaped, they glanced back one last time. Through the fading darkness, they saw Jamin standing tall, bathed in a radiant glow. His silhouette merged with the light, becoming indistinguishable from it. In that moment, he was no longer a hybrid or a soldier. He was simply a man who had chosen to sacrifice everything for the sake of others. The Umbra vanished entirely, leaving behind a quiet stillness. The trio collapsed on the ground, exhausted but alive. Around them, the world began to heal. Plants sprouted from barren soil. Rivers flowed freely once more, and the oppressive weight lifted from the air. Humanity had survived, not unscathed, but resilient. Though scarred, Earth showed signs of renewal. People emerged from hiding, rebuilding their lives piece by piece. Governments worked to restore order, while communities came together to support one another. Amidst the ruins, a fragile peace took root, a testament to the enduring spirit of those who dare to choose light over darkness. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, a single star twinkled brighter than the rest, a beacon guiding humanity toward a brighter future. The world was quiet now, but it wasn't the silence of death. It was the calm after a storm. The Umbra was gone, leaving behind an Earth scarred yet alive. Cities lay in ruins, their towering structures reduced to rubble, but amidst the wreckage, new beginnings stirred. People emerged from bunkers and shelters, blinking in the sunlight they hadn't seen in years. They were battered and broken, but they carried something stronger than despair: hope. Hyun-Soo and Yoon-ji stood side by side on a hill overlooking what remained of Seoul. The city that had once been a gleaming metropolis was now a patchwork of destruction and survival. Makeshift homes dotted the landscape, built from scraps of metal and wood. Children played in the streets, laughing as though nothing terrible had happened. Farmers worked together to replant fields, their hands caked with dirt, but their spirits unbroken. It was messy, chaotic, and far from perfect, but it was life. For Hyun-Soo, this sight brought mixed emotions. He had spent years chasing answers, convinced that science held the key to humanity's salvation. But standing here now, watching ordinary people rebuild their lives with nothing more than determination and grit, he realized how much he had underestimated the power of human resilience. His guilt over Project Eclipse still lingered, but it no longer consumed him. Instead, he felt a sense of responsibility to help ensure that humanity learned from its mistakes and never again walked the path that led to the Umbra. Yoon-ji, too, felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. For so long, she had blamed herself for contributing to the disasters that ravaged the planet. Her inventions had made life easier, but they had also fueled greed, inequality, and environmental destruction. Yet seeing the survivors come together reminded her of something important. Technology itself wasn't evil. It was how people chose to use it that mattered. As she gazed at the horizon, she resolved to dedicate her skills to creating solutions that benefited everyone, not just a privileged few. But neither of them could forget Jae-min. His sacrifice weighed heavily on their hearts. Though they had escaped the Umbra's core alive, they knew they owed their survival, and perhaps the survival of all humanity, to him. Jae-min had given up everything to keep the device running, ensuring the Umbra collapsed completely. In doing so, he had redeemed himself, not just for his past sins, but for every wrong choice humanity had ever made. He had shown them that even in the darkest moments, there was always a way to choose light. In the weeks that followed, stories of Jae-min spread across the globe. Survivors who had encountered him during his journey spoke of his kindness, his bravery, and his unwavering commitment to protecting others. Some called him a hero. Others saw him as a symbol of redemption. Whatever the label, one thing was clear: Jae-min's actions inspired countless people to believe in the possibility of change. As communities worked to rebuild, small acts of kindness became the foundation of a new society. People shared food and resources without expecting anything in return. Strangers helped each other repair homes and tend to the sick. Artists painted murals depicting scenes of unity and resilience, while musicians composed songs celebrating hope and perseverance. Slowly but surely, humanity began to heal, not just from the wounds inflicted by the Umbra, but from the divisions that had plagued it for centuries. Still, challenges remained. The hybrids created by Project Eclipse refused to disappear quietly. Many viewed themselves as superior beings, unwilling to coexist with weak humans. Clashes erupted sporadically, threatening to reignite the conflict between man and machine. But even among the hybrids, cracks began to form. Some questioned whether their existence truly served any purpose beyond domination. Others sought ways to reintegrate into human society, yearning for connection rather than control. One such hybrid was June, a former soldier who had participated in raids against human settlements. Like Jae-min, she struggled with her identity, torn between loyalty to her kind and a growing desire to make amends. Inspired by tales of Jae-min's sacrifice, she defected from the hybrid ranks, offering her services to aid reconstruction efforts. At first, people treated her with suspicion, but over time, her dedication won them over. June became a bridge between humans and hybrids, proving that reconciliation was possible, even in the face of deep mistrust. Meanwhile, governments convened to address the lessons learned from the Umbra. Leaders acknowledged the role that greed, hatred, and fear had played in its creation and vowed to build a better future. Policies were implemented to reduce inequality, protect the environment, and promote global cooperation. While progress was slow and often met with resistance, the collective will to move forward kept momentum alive. Hyun-Soo and Yoon-ji eventually parted ways, each pursuing different paths toward healing. Hyun-Soo joined a team of scientists studying the Umbra's remnants, hoping to prevent similar catastrophes in the future. Yoon-ji returned to engineering, focusing on sustainable technologies designed to empower rather than exploit. Though they no longer worked together, they remained connected by shared memories and a mutual respect for one another's contributions. On clear nights, both would look up at the stars, searching for the one that seemed brighter than the rest. To them, it represented Jimin, a man who had chosen to stand against darkness, even when it cost him everything. They didn't know if he was truly out there, watching over them, or if he had simply become part of the universe itself. Either way, his legacy endured, shining like a beacon in the night sky. Years passed, and Earth continued to recover. New cities rose from the ashes of the old, blending modern innovation with traditional values. Education systems emphasized empathy and collaboration, teaching children to value compassion as much as intelligence. Artists celebrated humanity's triumph over adversity, while historians documented the events leading up to the Umbra's rise and fall, ensuring future generations would remember the price of hubris. And through it all, the star twinkled brightly, a reminder that even in the darkest times, light could prevail. Humanity had faced extinction and chosen not to give in. It had stumbled, faltered, and fallen, but it had also risen stronger and wiser than before. The scars of the Umbra would never fully fade, but they serve as a testament to the resilience of a species determined to survive, not just physically but spiritually. Because in the end, humanity wasn't defined by its failures or its fears. It was defined by its ability to choose hope over despair, unity over division, and light over darkness. And as long as that spirit endured, no force in the universe could extinguish it.